Today we're going to be using DEHENCER Pro, which is a powerful film emulation plugins with a lot of customizable tools, allowing you to create the look that you want. Are you ready? Let's get ready. As you can see, we are inside the DaVinci Resolve, and please do not be afraid of my node tree, because I'm actually going to explain to you why every node is here. But the first thing that you must do when you open your DaVinci Resolve, you have to go into your color management settings here. So you actually tell Resolve, I want you to input my clip correctly, and as you can see, my color science is DaVinci YRGB and my timeline color space is DaVinci Intermediate, and that is because I'm delivering in both standard and high dynamic range. And then my output color space, or your output color space, should be to whatever your monitor is calibrated to, and mine is Rec 709, and that is what I'm doing. But again, you need to understand that everything that I've just told you here, it's very subjective depending on who is editing and their delivery or what they're required to deliver. So I've already done that. I'm gonna come out of the color management settings. So as you can see, I do have my node tree. Again, your node tree might not be like this, and I feel like on YouTube so many people complicate this node and they build it in a way that is very confusing. But again, this is subjective. The first thing that you have to do, you have to scan your image and see things that are needed, and then you build your node tree accordingly. So what I'm saying here, I do have this node which I'm actually going to rename the Ceph node. This is where I come back to and do all the adjustment if needed. And now I have all the primary adjustments, and then this node here, it's just I left it there just in case I want to come back to it, but you don't need it. And this is my saturation node, and then here there's a bunch of parallel node, like this is the background, this is orange, the dress, this is black, the car, this is the skin tone. Again, these are a selection of node that you might go on later and take the value of the color, boost it or desaturate it depending on what you want to achieve or the look that your footage is required. And now we do have the CST, or color space transform, and when you're working with film print emulation, you do have to almost take it from Rec 709 to the CINEON log film. That is because CINEON film is the only color space that can house all the film print emulation that we're about to use, and it's very advisable to do that so you can actually get the best from your film print emulation. And I hope I'm making sense. And then these two nodes here, I will talk about them at the end because they are very important to me and I always have them, and you too, you'll see. And the last node is DEHENCER. So one thing that you need to understand about DEHENCER, never, or you should not put your DEHENCER at the beginning of your node. That is because, let's say you put your DEHENCER here, you are actually limiting yourself on how much you can pull and push or rejig your clip, because everything is affected. But when you put it at the end of the node tree, it means you can actually come on all this node pre-DEHENCER and you might be able to adjust them accordingly. And that's why it's always advisable to put your node, your DEHENCER node, right at the end. So those are the principle. Now we are going to start by the color space transform. So we're going to go into our effect. We're going to bring color space transform, and here obviously I showed this myself. This is the Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve Generation 5. By the way, I DP'd this project and it was directed by my very good friend and studio. So if you have a music video and you need a DP, listen, hit me up. I'll also leave the link in the video description. So anyway, input color space Blackmagic generation 5, input gamma Blackmagic film, and then output color space. And now we are telling Resolve we need this to be in Rec 7 or 9 before we transcode it into CINEON log film. And that is what we're going to do. We're going to come here and pick Rec 7 or 9. As you can see, this is what Resolve is giving us as Rec 7 or 9. So now we're going to go to output gamma, which is have to be or will have to be CINEON log film. And now we are ready to pass this CINEON log film to Dehancer. So any film print emulation that you apply, it will actually fit correctly. So now we are going to go straight to Dehancer. So again, you're going to go to effect, and then you're going to type Dehancer, and now we bring on our Dehancer. As you can see, the reason why our clips is like this because there's so many things that are pre-selected in Dehancer. And what I advise, because when you actually open Dehancer for the first time and you apply it on, this is quite overwhelming. So you have to close all this so you actually take it one by one and then know what you are applying to your footage and what you need and do not need. But as you can see, there is a noise or film grain already, so we're going to go into film grain and disable it. So now it also look like there is something else, which I guess is a film print that's already pre-selected, so we're going to deselect it. So the first thing that we need in Dehancer is to actually choose your file format. As we said, CINEON log film is what we need, but Dehancer also have their own way of turning your image from Rec 709 to CINEON log film. But the reason why I do prefer to use color space transform, because they do have a lot of power, and I feel like Resolve is more accurate when I change my color space, and that's why I prefer to use Resolve. So now I'm going to leave the inputs alone, and the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to go to film and I'm going to enable it. As you can see, it has the Vision 3 250D. So before selecting your film print emulation, let me give you like a small education on film prints, because as I say, I'm a DP and I've worked with film before. This is something that you need to understand. Before picking any film print emulation, you need to understand that they come in two types. Some of them are daylight balance and the other one are tungsten balance. That means that is the type of light that film stock was designed to be shot in. So let's say you do have your light and it's daylight, you should pick anything daylight balance, or if it's tungsten, you do that. But understand you can also move around and do vice versa, but it's always good to know how your clip is going to be affected. So because this was shot indoor, I'm actually going to pick anything with tungsten balance. I hope I'm making sense. So now let's go back into Dehancer, and I'm gonna pick the Kodak Vision 200T tungsten. So I'm gonna leave it there. I'm not going to pull anything because, like I say, here we still have all the adjustment that we can do and then mess with this later. And another thing that I'm going to do is here to the expand. This is also where I'm gonna come back later after I've readjusted my image pre-Dehancer. So I'm going to leave that. So when it comes to prints, there's so many things that you can do, but with this you can actually go to 2383, but I'm going to pick Kodak Endura glossy paper because this makes my clip look very neat and very nice, combined with the Vision 3 200T. So now let's move on. So obviously this is a film print emulation, and another thing that we need to select is the grain. And when we select the grain, it kind of allows us to see how our image will look with the film print emulation and with the grain. As you can see, this is okay, but for me, I feel like the grain is too much and I want it to be very subtle. So there's a few things that I have to do. First of all, I'm going to reduce the amount. And then just, this is also subjective, by the way. You kind of like play with it and see what works for you. And then there's two type of way that you can make it very subtle. So you can come here to film type, we take it from negative to positive. As you can see, this make it a bit subtle, which is better, and that is what I prefer. And you can also go to here to mode and take it from analog to digital experimental. So again, this is good for me and I prefer this. So as you can see in Dehancer, there's a lot of tools here that we need to come back and visit later after we've treated our image pre-Dehancer, because right now we need to also go back and balance the image, make sure the luminance value is fine, the saturation and all that stuff. Then we can come back to Dehancer and refine those selections. So I'm going to give you an example. Consider this as a tripod at a ground that is not even, so you need to balance all the tripod legs to make sure the surface is very nicer. So that's why we're going to be going from Dehancer to all of these other adjustments, if that makes sense. So the first thing that I'm going to do, obviously I'm going to do the adjustment, and I'm going to make sure that I actually just determine the luminance value of my image. And to do that, I'm going to go into my waveform and here remove the colorize. It's already removed, but you can remove the colorize. This is just because I actually want to set my luminance value of my image. So there we go. I'm going to push the lift down and I'm going to push the gain up, and then I'll do my lift down again. And sometimes, listen, do not be afraid to pull the shadow down or the lift down, because some people are just, the way they do their thing, they're just afraid. But hey, this is where I'm going to stop. So I'm going to jump on the saturation and I'm going to bump up the saturation. And the reason why I'm going to do that after I've adjusted the gain and the lift, I'm done all the primary, as you can see before and after. This is so everything else that I add in the image, I see how it affects my saturation, and sometimes it might be too much. So I'm gonna go here and go to our RGB mixture. I'm gonna push the red, I'm gonna push the green channel, and I'm going to push the blue channel. As you can see, this is okay for me. So I'm gonna come back again in this adjustment, go back to my primary, and then I'm going to give it a bit of contrast, just a bit like that. And then I actually still have a bit of room to push and pull, but I'm gonna leave it here. And then now go back to Dehancer and then trying to adjust a few things. Like I say, it's left and right, pull and push. So we're going back to Dehancer, and one thing that I'm going to do, I'm gonna go back into my film and I'll try and see what I can do if I push the color either to the left or right to see if it's going to do any better. So as you can see, it actually desaturate the image, and that's what I want for now. And then I'm going to go back into the print and then color density. So this is where you have to kind of like push more to get more color. So this is what we are getting, which is good. I'm actually going to go back into the film again and just bring it back so we have more. So I'm going to leave it here. So another thing that I kind of like to do is HELATION, but you might not be able to see it too much here because it's sometimes it affects your clip, but it's very visible to see when you do not have a lot of edge in your clip. So if you actually want to see it, it kind of like affecting my image a little bit. It kind of make it a bit shiny-ish, which is what I like. So I'm going to leave it there, and then I'll come back to my adjustment again. This is where you kind of have to reassess your image and see what is working and what is not working. And for me, I'm actually liking that. As you can see, the red is misbehaving right now, but we are okay with that. So one thing that I feel like this image need is more of a saturation that I'm actually going to add from here, and I'm actually going to leave it there. So this is what we have. And now, so I'm going to go back to Dehancer again and revisit everything, and then trying to do more adjustment in Dehancer so the color and the film print can actually be more accentuated, if that makes sense. So we're gonna go back here to expand. So I'm going to try and push the white point to get more highlight, and then I'm going to push the black point. And then one thing that I'm actually going to go back here and just push the highlights. So that is what we are having, but I don't like how much the shadow is in her skin. So again, this is why sometimes you need safe node. So this is called shadow. I'm going to come back here and deal with those blacks. So this is what we have to do. So that is before and after. And sometimes you just have to give your image a bit of life. So because this was actually shot in a studio, there's a lot of a blue cast here, and that was intentional, and that actually is what we wanted. So this is okay for now. And again, I'm gonna go back inside Dehancer, and another thing that I'm gonna do, I'm going to go to the print itself, and then tonal contrast, not too much. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna come back, and then I'm gonna go to color hill. So this is something that's very important that you need to understand. So as I can see, there's a bit of a green almost color tint in my image, and when you actually click gang, these three color value, they move at the same time, and to readjust to your tint, so as you can see, if I push it too much, this is what I'm getting, and if I bring it like here, that is better. And as you can see, it's very effective, but it's very hard to see it, so I'm going to move again. So this is good for what I'm trying to achieve. And one thing that I'm noticing is that the image is too like the center of focus is the lady here, but I can still see the lamp, and I can still see here. I just want to be able to tone all this side down so she could be the center of attention more. And one thing that I'm going to do, I'm actually going to come all the way to vignetting, and I'm going to activate my vignette and kind of set it in a way that the middle frame is still going to be more visible, and we just tone the side. So it's going to be, that's too much as you can see, but you just have to make it so it's take more attention from the background and put it in the foreground, or the where the person that you want people to focus on are. So this is gonna take some time kind of rejigging, if that even makes sense. So I think I'm happy with that. So before and after, before and after, before and after. Like I said, it's very important to understand what is one thing that you want your audience to focus on. And for me, it's her, and so far this is actually good. One thing that I'm going to do, there's actually a lot of black that I've crushed, and I'm gonna go back into my shadow, and I'm actually gonna lift it just a little bit again. So that is what we have. And for now, I'm actually going to leave Dehancer alone and work on all these other nodes that we have to make sure that we separate the background and then her, and also kind of accentuate every color value. So one thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the background, of course, and I'm going to do to the qualifier, and I'm going to pick the 3D one because I feel like it selects way more, and I'm going to pick the background. Obviously, you always have to make sure that your background is selected. You refine all the adjustments. This is actually what make or break your selection. When you take your time and just clean it nicely to make sure that everything is done properly and there won't be any color spill or something. So as you can see, oops, no, that. As you can see, I'm quite happy with this. So I'm gonna go back again, and what I need to do, I need to go into hue versus saturation, and I'm gonna pick the color, and when it comes here, I'm actually going to expand it a little bit more, and I'm gonna put another point maybe here. So I'm going to push it. Like I said, this is a way you can just separate the background and the foreground a bit. So I'm going to push it. As you can see, there's actually a lot of spill. So if we actually like before and after, that's actually good. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to decrease the lift, and then I'm going to kind of like decrease the highlights. And so that is before and after, before and after. This also makes it very even, if that makes sense. So this is what we have for now. And then another thing that I'm going to pick, I'm going to pick the black. With the black, there's not that much things you can do. You can literally come to luma versus saturation, and then you kind of like select it. Hold on, wait, sorry, I'm gonna have to reset this node and again go back to our qualifier and then select the black, and obviously we want to make sure our black look black. So that is good for now. I'm going to clean white and then morph it, boom. So that is okay. So I'm going to bring it back, and I'm gonna go back into our hue versus hue, and I'm going to select that hue again. This might be where we kind of have to turn this down a bit, just like that, because it's the car is black, but because there's like a big spill which have given it this color. So that is what we're going to do, and that is actually better. One thing that I'm going to do, I'm actually going to push the shadow just a bit, just there. So that is before and after, before and after, and we are happy with this. Another thing that I'm going to do, I'm now going to pick the dress that she's wearing. Again, go back there, our qualifier, 3D, pick the dress, and refine the selection. So, because there's nothing that has the same color, this is actually quite easy to pick if you ask me. So I'm going to again refine the selection. You have to make sure you take time in refining this better, because it kind of like gives you this clean selection, so your color won't be affected. So now I'm going to go back into our hue versus sat, and I'm going to reselect it. And then one thing that I'm going to do, I'm actually going to add another point here, and I'm just gonna push it just a little bit, before and after. So I'm going to go back again here, put another point. Now I should put another point here, and then push this here, and then I'm gonna go into hue versus hue, and I'm gonna pick it again, and I'm going to overdo it. As you can see, that's not very good, but I'm just going to just desaturate it a bit like that. So that is what we have, and as you can see, our image is looking a bit better, and we started from here, and this is where we are. So most of the time there's a few things that I usually do, because the hair is very affected by the color of the light that was actually like the key light. I'm not gonna do too much again, and her skin. So I'm going to go back on the safe node, and I'm going to put the mid-tone detail a little bit, so that kind of help with her skin tone, and then I'm going to leave it there. So now we come to these two nodes. These two nodes are very important. The first one is when there's a lot of things that you want to pop within the contrast area. So as you can see, it say pop. So I'm gonna go back here and then pick contrast pop, and I'm gonna drop contrast pop to my node. And if I actually exaggerate it, you can see that's how it is, but you need to make sure that you make it nicer, but not too much again. So that is before, after, before, after. I still need to tone it down just a little bit, so I'm also going to put the softness down. So again, that is before and after. This kind of make your image stand out, especially when you like doing black skin tone, because black skin are very reflective. So now this is what we have. And the last thing that I'm going to do, this is the printer light. So what I usually do, I have to reassess my image and see which color is actually more, or which color tint is in my image. And then I would have to go to show RGB value, and then I'll go to my qualifier, and I'll check like the skin, there's more red in the skin. So you can then go back to color, and then if this is not activated, obviously print light hotkeys, and you can almost remove the red if you wanted to. And then I'm going to add a bit of, I'm going to remove the blue as well and add red twice. So I'm going to do one time, and then I'm going to do the second time, add red, and that is before and after. It's very effective, but almost here, but I'm going to maybe add more red again just for the sake of this video, plus red, and I'm going to add red twice, and then I'm going to take off almost the yellow that is in here. So we take off the yellow, again, I'll do twice. So now if I actually do before and after, you can see there's like a very significant change within our image. And now let's say there's also something that you wanted to do, or you have to go back into your Dehancer. You can now go here and pretty much revisit all the selection and see if you are happy with them, and expand. As you can see, this was very helpful. And one thing that I also like about Dehancer, because at the end of everything that you have adjusted to your image, they actually tell you like, hey, so this is the output. How much do you want this to be effective? You can do 50%, you can do 26%, but obviously with me there, I want it to be 100% effective. And also you can generate the light from your Dehancer. That's if you only use Dehancer, and obviously you can also do that. And I do also like the false color option. This is actually that you have to I use it most of the time when I want to select and see my color value and see what everything that I've done, what it have affected, and which is also good. And film breathe and all that get wave as well is very good, but in this case we did not need it. And as you can see, this is what we have created. So again guys, that is it for the Dehancer film emulation. If you like this video, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell icon so you don't miss when I post a video like this. I'll see you when I upload.